big pieces of the negotiation. You know, there's a whole track that kind of focuses on forests. I think on forests, I am cautiously optimistic that we should get a decent outcome out of Paris. I mean, if they fail to do that, they're going to fail on everything else, is my judgment. Right? If they cannot, after all the preparatory work we've done, after all the sort of nice speeches that we heard at the climate summit from heads of state and ministers and CEOs of big companies in New York last year at the UN, it would be devastating if we don't get a very ambitious forest outcome out of the Paris negotiations.
Kim, your thoughts on that?
I think we have the same analysis that the opportunity is pretty good. Forests in general can be an enormous part of the problem, in the sense that if forests continue to be chopped down in many countries around the world, they are an enormous source of carbon in the atmosphere. But if we get that to stop, if we get some reforestation happening in some places, forest protection happening in other places, responsible forest management that maintains the carbon in the forest in other places again, then I think it can become a very, very important part of the solution.
In that case, FSC's work
FSC,
in IFL protection as well as exploitation goes in that direction, goes in that.
FSC has always been about protecting environmental values in the forest together with the social and the economic values to make sure that happens. And climate change is becoming increasingly important as one of the environmental values. It is as well a social and economic value, but it's often seen as environmental. And therefore climate change becomes more and more important for us, and measuring the carbon in the forest, making sure the carbon stays in the forest when we have responsible forest management is going to be a major part of FSC's future.
And the link between forests and climate is also, obvious, but it's important to note that protecting forests is probably, especially intact landscape forests, is probably one of the most effective, one of the cheapest and fastest ways of getting at least part of the climate solution locked in. Right? And it's a no-brainer for this Paris negotiations not to deliver a very, very clear outcome for forests. And that's why I say if they fail to do that, then you can almost guarantee that they failed on everything else. If they cannot get this done, then it would be a terrible testimony that our political and business leaders are still suffering from a terrible case of cognitive dissonance as to how serious and how things are and how close we are to the climate cliff.